What happens when you walk into a high stakes conversation at work without your game face on?
Take a look at the following clip.
We're so happy that you were able to take the time to come over so we could talk this through.
I'm Marion Coatsworth Hay.
Sorry. I was thinking of this thing that just happened with the deficit. I'm sorry.
Oh, God. Excuse me, please. Is this a hazing?
I swear it's not hazing. It's real. It's real. I just laughed because of the name. You gotta fix it. You know what happened? I didn't have my game face on.
Yes.
Anyway, problem solved.
Excuse me.
That clearly did not go well for her and the game face she intended to have in that meeting. And when you have to walk into a high stakes conversation, you know your reaction can determine the outcome. If you're pitching to a potential investor who points out a weakness in your product or service during the pitch, if you show fear in that moment, you risk losing credibility right away. Or if you're in a sales negotiation and the buyer offers way more than you expected and you show surprise, you risk losing leverage on the price of that deal overall. Now, this can be especially difficult when you're going into a conversation and the inner feelings you have about the conversation are completely mismatched with the ones you know you need to project in order to get the outcome that you're looking for. So, tough times for CJ Craig. But the good news is there are techniques and strategies that you can learn to build this muscle walking into high stakes scenarios like this. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about in this podcast. But Matthew, tell us about what this can be like from the performer's perspective.
I can only imagine Allison Janney and Mary Louise Parker in between takes on this one. How many takes did they do? Whatever they're feeling, the ability to name that, to accept that, and to release that, and to go fully into the character, to not break down in giggles between takes or during a take, so we're not wasting time in this very high stakes moment. Great for blooper reels, horrible for on-set practice. Which brings us to the name of our podcast.
Yes, welcome to the edge of the stage, life lessons from performance training. So we're talking right about that edge of the stage between the performer, the performance space, and everyday life, and what types of strategies can be helpful on both sides of the stage. I'm Berit Elizabeth, founder of Emotive Agility Training, a technique I created to help people with public speaking skills and to get through a preparation for difficult conversations based on a physical theater technique. And in the last 15 years, I've been in a variety of business development and leadership roles and have started my own mental health tech startup. But as Matthew knows, academically, my true passion has been for these wellness practices that are inherent in performance training techniques and how we can take those and use those to enhance our everyday life, to develop our own inner experience so that we walk through the world with less stress.
And I'm Matthew Ellenwood. I'm
And
the founder of Ellenwood Studios here in Chicago, Illinois. We have been serving performers in the community across, from Broadway to streaming to cinemas everywhere, for 30 years. In that time, I have developed Verity, which is an embodied technique for identifying, inducing, regulating, and releasing emotional states at will. It's great with nonverbal communication that we use as performers, but as Berit and I will talk about, using all of our tools for professionals and performance as well as our personal life is essential for everyone. Berit and I met because we are both affective science geeks. We love it. And we thought, what fun to create a podcast that had a scientific basis as well as a philosophical overview. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work with emotional intelligence and its importance right now to what we saw in the clip and where we're going to go with the podcast?
yes, emotional intelligence, by its very definition, is our intelligence about emotions. And so we might be able to cognitively know that laughing, in CJ Craig's case in this clip, is not the best emotion to present in that situation to get the outcome that she wanted. So even if her emotional intelligence is high and she knows that's not the best emotion to bring forth, it doesn't always mean that's enough. That's why I think there's a lot of training elements that we can use from performance training in everyday life to elicit the outcomes we need or we know we want when we walk into a high stakes situation.
Yes. In each episode, we're going to be looking at a performance training aspect and comparing that with what we know from the scientific world. What's the evidence base for those performance training capabilities and how effective are they? Barrett was mentioning emotional intelligence, which is the whole thing, the philosophical outpinning. Also, today, we looked a little bit at emotional contagion. How do I stay rooted in what I want to experience emotionally when the whole world around me is experiencing something very, very different? Would have been very useful for any performer on this set with Allison Janney and Mary Louise Parker. I would be breaking up a lot if I didn't have some of these skill sets. And there's some good evidence for how to do that and remain in your own lane. Beyond that, we have these philosophical ideals that we call the 4 pillars that talk about the wider contexts of how this is important for everyday personal life beyond career.
Every time you listen to an episode, we will have a takeaway for you. We are going to include a strategy that you can take away and implement even the next day from our podcast. We'll make sure that we break it down into a digestible action that you can use in any scenario that arises the next time that you need it.
If any of this sounds good to you, please hit like and subscribe. And our next episode, our first full episode, will be on zero, neutral, or greyrocking. What is it? When is it useful professionally and as a performer and in your personal life?
If you're someone that feels like you wear everything on your face or you don't know what your face looks like when you're in meeting, this will be a great one for you to tune into. See you there.